Let's get right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a concept from a recent Bash Brains psychology breakdown that is honestly just incredibly relatable. It's all about why you think people are losing interest in you. We're going to look closely at that intense, quiet, overthinking loop, that psychological pattern that makes your brain assume the absolute worst just because a tiny social signal changed. You know the exact scenario, right? We've all been there. You send a super simple, everyday text, something completely harmless like, "Hey, how was your day?" And then you see those three little dots. The typing indicator flashes. You wait for the reply. But then it just vanishes. No text, no explanation. You're just staring at a blank screen. And as the minutes physically stretch on, going from 8:03 to 8:15 and then 8:45, your brain literally refuses to just sit in the silence. Externally, nothing is really going wrong. But internally, a slow mental spiral begins. You're agonizing over the timestamps, and that invisible tension just builds and builds with every passing minute. In that total absence of an immediate response, you instantly jump to the absolute darkest conclusion. That just solidifies like concrete in your mind. They're losing interest. Without a single shred of actual proof, your mind completely convinces you that your connection with this person is just falling apart. But what's really fascinating here is how the anxiety always starts so incredibly small. You think about the past. Fast replies, tons of emojis, super high energy. And then you look at the present message. Yeah, it was fine. It's shorter. It's missing an emoji. Your brain instantly latches onto this micro detail. It's not some massive, dramatic breakdown. It's a tiny, subtle shift that just sets off all the alarms. So why exactly do we do this? Well, your brain is actually built to detect patterns. It's a fundamental survival mechanism. It's constantly comparing now to before. And when a baseline pattern changes, like say suddenly switching from exclamation points to periods, your brain frantically tries to explain why, highlighting those subtle little changes as potential threats. This hyper-observation immediately triggers a flood of shadow thoughts, and it almost always starts exactly like this. Did I say something wrong? You instantly start digging through your past interactions, mentally rereading and rereading your own messages, desperately looking for that exact moment where you might have made a fatal conversational mistake. And it definitely doesn't stop at just one thought. That internal voice gets a little bit louder, shifting to, wait, are they bored? You begin questioning your own value to them, wondering if maybe you're simply no longer interesting enough to keep their attention. Then those thoughts start to echo and they multiply. Are they talking to someone else? The fear really amplifies now, jumping straight to the painful conclusion that you are actively being replaced. It's a deeply emotionally exposing moment where your own internal reactions completely overpower everything else. Finally, you are just totally surrounded by these overwhelming what-if texts. Did I mess this up? You've essentially convinced yourself that the impending failure of this entire relationship is 100% your fault. You're trapped in this echo chamber of your own making, and the anxiety is just a constant buzzing hum. And this brings us right to the psychological core of the issue. The source material defines this perfectly as an emotional prediction error. This is a cognitive misstep where your brain predicts a severe emotional outcome, like total rejection or abandonment, without anywhere near enough information. And the real danger? It treats those fearful, anxious predictions not as random guesses, but as absolute, undeniable reality. Let's actually break down how this error happens in 3 distinct steps. Step 1, your brain takes a simple, highly ambiguous event, like a neutral delay in texting. Step 2, it forms a massive negative prediction, fully imagining a future where you are ignored and forgotten. And step 3, it forces you to literally live through the intense, heavy emotion of that imagined rejection right now, right in the present moment. But here is the absolute most crucial takeaway. You have to remember that your anxious prediction does not equal actual reality. Just because your mind is morphing a perfectly neutral text delay into this harsh rejection doesn't mean that's what is actually happening on the other side of the screen. This actually brings up a really powerful quote from the analysis. Your body reacts as if something real has already happened. Just think about that for a second. Even though absolutely nothing externally has changed, your phone is literally just sitting there on the table, your physical body is actively, intensely responding to the narrative you just made up in your head. So you find yourself trapped in this intense physical anxiety loop. You're repeatedly checking the phone, you're completely losing focus on the real world around you, and your heartbeat is steadily increasing. You are literally experiencing the full physiological stress of a breakup or a rejection that, objectively, has not happened yet. It's the physical manifestation of overthinking. Trapped in this loop, what's your next move? You try to seek some kind of reassurance. You type out, "Are you okay?" But then you hesitate. You hold back. You hit backspace and you just delete it. You don't want to seem needy. You don't want to seem anxious. So you say nothing. And the silence in the room just gets louder and way more oppressive. Okay, let's step out of the spiral for a second and look at the actual grounding truth of the situation. Most of the time, they're not losing interest. They are literally just living their life. Maybe they got pulled into a work meeting, or they're driving, or their phone just died. They are completely blissfully unaware of the intense psychological spiral that's happening on your end. It is absolutely vital to reframe this difference between uncertainty and rejection. Your brain isn't actually trying to torture you with this overthinking. It's a defense mechanism. It's desperately trying to protect you from the deep, agonizing discomfort of uncertainty. To your brain, just assuming rejection early on actually feels safer than sitting there in the unknown. The source material points out a really profound insight here. If this explainer feels uncomfortably accurate to you, it absolutely does not mean you're broken. It just means you've been conditioned, likely by past experiences, to anticipate loss at the very first sign of silence. You basically just learned to expect loss way too quickly. So, now that you understand the mechanics behind this emotional prediction error, you really have to ask yourself, are you finally going to stop believing every anxious thought your mind creates? Because once you recognize what your brain is doing behind the scenes, you actually have a choice. Are you going to keep letting a blinking cursor control your emotional reality? Or will you pause, take a deep breath, and remember that silence is usually just